out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest, or two in this case, because it's now going to be the turn of the Soup Dragons. I spoke to two of the members, the bass player Sushil to talk, and also Ross Sinclair, the drummer, or original drummer of the band, to find out more about life, love, poetry and all the other groovy stuff. Also, they have got exciting news. They've got a double A-side single, Love is Love, and also No Music on a Dead Planet, and live dates, which are going to be happening at the end of October 2023, starting in Manchester and ending in Glasgow on the 2nd of November, with support from various bands, including the BMX Bandits, the Vaselines, and also Stephen Pastel on one night. So this is the interview. So just to give you some idea, it begins with me talking to Sushil about his love and musical awakening. And eventually Ross joins us for a three-way Zoom conversation. So you're going to hear, it's going to be very organic and exciting. Anyway, so this is the interview. You'll pick it up as we go along. It's kind of rock and roll, so just don't worry about it. So yes, like I said, after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to that exciting subject that was the early musical awakening. Sushil, tell us more, tell us everything.
Yeah. I probably had layers of awakenings, to be honest. By the way, there's just a wee text coming there from Ross. I think he's going to join us in 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. There you go. That's cool.
That's fine. We'll continue. So, yeah, I guess I was brought up in a household. My parents were Indian, still are. So I was exposed to a lot of Indian classical music, which I might not have fully got at the time, but it was all around me. It was part of my DNA, even though I might not have really appreciated it at the time. So that was layer number one.
Yes.
Layer number two was staying at my granny's house in Glasgow, and my uncle would go out to play tennis on a Saturday afternoon. So I would be left for a couple of hours alone in his room. I had access to his cassettes and a tape player. So it was listening to Beatles, C86, C60s or C30s.
Yes.
So although those were records that he'd taped, I was now feeling as though I was discovering this incredible sound world. Fast forward a few years later, just buying my first 7-inch singles, the Undertones. I love the Specials. I love the whole two-tone thing. For me, two-tone was the real, how shall we say it? When you light a firework.
Yes.
What's the word for that? Yeah. It was just the explosion of my mind. I kind of felt I owned it. I belonged to this tribe. And, politically, there was a lot of things as a young British Asian as well. There was still some dodgy things you would see. You would see punk rockers wearing swastika symbols when I was a kid. And I didn't quite get that.
No. Well, it's something.
Yeah, I mean, the swastika's from Indian culture, so Hitler stole that one too. But so something like two-tone was so great because it embraced everyone. It was for everyone. It was welcoming. It had a message, but most of all, it had a lot of fun. So yeah, I would say Jerry Dahmer's the mastermind behind two-tone. Even to this day, it's such a driving force.
Yes, absolutely. Special, aka free Nelson Mandela.
Exactly. Yeah,
Stunning.
I mean that's what I ripped off the AKA for my solo project, Future Pilot AKA. So yeah, that's a tribute.
Absolutely. And what was the first gig you went to at this stage in your teenage years?
So yeah, continuing the two-tone theme, it was the Specials at Glasgow Apollo.
Right.
Which is pretty momentous. I took my brother as a chaperone. I don't know, I must have just been 15 or something. And the Apollo is this legendary venue in Glasgow. The stage used to be about 15 feet high, the really tall stage. So as a wee kid, at the height of two-tone, and there was a bit of ruckus outside as well. You could see some of the skinheads who completely didn't get the memo.
No, they didn't.
Thought it was still, they looked the part, but I think they didn't get that this was all about unity and people coming together. So yeah, it was still quite a dangerous kind of element, even going to a two-tone gig. Can you believe that?
I can,
So yeah,
because I think things were things were very tribal in those days. I mean, I came from an area in East Anglia where it was kind of rock and heavy rock, and everyone loved status quo. And I can remember, you couldn't admit to liking the beat or two-tone because you were a mod, and thus should get beaten up and chased down the street or the country lane and then beaten up. But it was still quite a tribal thing. The Quo were the band, and then all the other bands as well. But so you couldn't sort of slip between one musical genre to the next. So luckily, it wasn't the National Front in our area, but. Yes.
I hear what you're saying, though. It's a similar thing, isn't it? So there you've taken away the racial kind of element or the cultural element. There was these tribes even within white-skinned listeners, heavy metal camp, disco camp. But, guilty pleasures, if you're a heavy metalist, of course you love Chic. But you might not be able to admit that,
Well, I remember one of those brilliant documentaries on Black Sabbath, and they were talking about their classic album. And it was interesting that most of those players, well, the players are not Ozzy, but the other members were all quite influenced. There was one particular, I think it was the bass player, who was very influenced by the Planets, the music of the Planets, and would use a bit of a musical motif and melody to develop one of the songs, which was a classic Sabbath song, and the guitarist was really into was it that jazz guitarist from the sort of the French people, which I know I can't remember, French people, but one of those French jazz guitarists,
Django Reinhardt.
Yes. So they were all very, their musical influences weren't just listening to other heavy metal. It was actually listening to very different music that then comes back into the pot to develop really interesting sounds. And I know Richie Blackmore talked about one of the riffs that he got, which was from a Bulgarian folk record, which was acoustic. And then he took that and then just, put it on his Marshall amp and then went, classic riff. I've just stole it, but no one knows where from. So there you go.
Well, if you listen to the Birds, a lot of those guitar lines that Roger McGuinn were doing were kind of sitar lines. So that's what we do. We don't just eat pasta, we don't just eat curry. It's this amazing melting pot.
Yes.
With music, fashion, art. It's cultural exchange at its best.
So when did a musical instrument slip into your life?
Oh, once again, very early. So my dad, our house was full of instruments. I mean, sitars, harmoniums, banjos, guitars, broken, all sorts of tabla drums. So on a Friday, Saturday night, my dad would this is in the 70s, would invite, the uncles over, the aunties, huge pots of food, and music making would happen of an evening. And I guess my first engagement was probably to be recruited as the in-house dancer. So although I wasn't playing, I felt as though I was part of this magical music making kind of situation in the house. Felt very safe. It felt really exciting.
Yes.
Slightly dangerous as well in a really exciting way, and quite radical. But so there I was exposed to so many kinds of instruments. And like my dad, don't think I've really ever mastered many of them, but I've always been a bit of a dabbler. I mean, the bass guitar has been my key instrument throughout, but I do quite like just sort of having fun with videos.
Absolutely. And was there a particular bass player that you looked at or listened to that you thought, I might try and sort of emulate that person?
Well, I think going back to the specials again, Sir Horace Gentleman, a lot of his bass lines were really, really forward thinking. I mean, I didn't know at the time, but obviously he was a devotee of a lot of the ska artists and the reggae artists. But he made it his own. There was a lot of new wave players that, you would hear from bands like, New Order, Joy Division, Stranglers, The Clash. I mean, all really distinct players. A lot of my favorite bass players actually female. Tina Weymouth is probably my absolute favourite because she's such a minimalist.
Yes.
And you know, we were lucky enough to tour with the Tom Tom Club, so you know, we hung out a wee bit, and she gave us some nice tips.
Top tips from Tina. That's fantastic. That's
yeah,
that is so
it was
nice.
amazing.
Hello, Ross.
Hiya, I'm so sorry I'm
Ross is
late.
here. Excellent. Stop. There's someone at my door. Excuse me 1 second. Hi, Ross.
I do
Sorry.
remember kind of in the 70s, there was, I think this was kind of daytime telly that you'd watch when you were ill and off school, but I think, was it called House Party, where a woman was being in the kitchen and, you know, would be doing something like knitting or making something, and then the doorbell would ring and then someone would come to it and they would sort of go, oh, I've been doing this. And I think it was it called House Party or something? It was daytime telly, but it was quite strange. It was obviously for sort of housewives aimed at in the 70s. And it's a little bit like, this is good, actually. I quite like it. There you go. Are you keeping well, Ross?
Yeah, good to see you again, David. Again, apologies. I was sitting, it's the start of term this week. So, you know, I work at the art school, as we discussed probably before, and in Glasgow, so it's been so hectic this week. So I thought I wasn't going to have to go in today, but I had to go in, and anyway. So apologies.
Yes, those fresh-faced students seem to get younger. It's just actually we just get older, isn't it? So
yeah, they absolutely do.
So we're just going through musical influences, but actually we have done an interview in the past, so I have heard your story, haven't I? Which is all very exciting.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it's me again. And
it's you. No, it's absolutely fine. So we're just coming to that point. I was just we were sort of trundling through the kind of. I'm sorry, it's only 40 years in time, and we've got to talk about the future. But just roughly, how do you all meet back in the 80s? Are you all in the same town at this time?
Well, no.
Ross, you can go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, ironically, Sushil and I lived in the same sort of suburb of Glasgow, but we actually didn't know each other at all. We went to different schools, and the other guys lived out in Lanarkshire and Bellshill and Motherwell, more the kind of, I suppose, the sort of Glaswegian C86 nexus, you know, as defined by many a TV program, etc., in Bellshill. But well, I don't know. I mean, I guess there was a kind of real sort of nascent sort of music thing going on in the sort of, I suppose all these things are always the conceit of one's own generation. I suppose that you think you're doing it all for the first time sort of thing. But of course, you know, even in the kind of indie Glasgow scene, there had been, of course, Postcard and Orange Juice and Joseph K and the whole kind of gamut of stuff. But by 85, you know, there were 2 or 3 different sort of music nights going on in Glasgow, and a couple of pubs that people went to. And of course, the Splash One Club, which is our first gig. But I think...
Can I just ask a question on that, Glasgow? Was there also a rehearsal place that was run by, was it Dave Henderson and Jacqueline somebody?
Yeah, that was the Hellfire Club, which is, I think, a former synagogue, and then also was Savage Studios in the basement.
Yeah. Jacqueline Houston, was it? Yeah, I think that was just, I don't know, I never went, Sushil, did you? I think that was just a couple of years before we were maybe old enough to be going out. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I had rehearsed it actually before with previous bedroom bands and things, but there was this, I mean, this is where all the Postcard bands, you know, they would record.
Well, funny enough, I was watching, I sort of caught myself watching an old edition of The Tube, remember The Tube on a Friday night, Channel 4, and there was a Glasgow special, and they suddenly had about that club and those 2 members talking about it and going, you know, Jules Holland and was wandering through this burnt out sort of looking church with this rehearsal space and talking about how cheap it was. And, I think Simple Minds had even recorded there as well. So I was just like, fascinated with this little, you know, because it was a very organic time, wasn't it? There wasn't much money, but there was a lot of resourcefulness.
Oh, so it's always
absolutely. Sorry, I thought you were going to maybe say a bit more about Savannah stuff, Sushil.
No. Yeah, it might be helpful. See when you're posing questions, just so we know who it's aimed at, because it's always difficult to avoid that pregnant pause.
The pregnant pause is just what we love in a three-way conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said enough about Hellfire Club. I mean, it was an institution, and Davey actually still really quite an active sound man. He's done stuff with the fan club. Last time I saw him, he was doing something with Francis McDonald, Robert Foster. So he's still working with some of the postcard associated bands, I guess.
Yeah, he's a bit of a legendary guy, isn't he? I mean, David Henderson is, as opposed to Davy Henderson from Fire Engines.
That's another chapter, yeah.
Yes, that is a bit of a chapter, isn't it?
Well,
I know this. So the question was, how did you guys kind of meet each other?
Well, we've got a couple of versions of that one as well.
Right, let's hear yours first, Ross.
Right, okay. Well, my connection was I was playing in another band called Gods for All Occasions. That was my sort of bedroom band, and we were playing at the art school. I'd started at the art school in Glasgow in 84, and I think late 84 or early 85. Sorry, 85. We were playing a gig at the Vic Bar. It was called the little kind of student bar, with the Gods for All Occasions, who actually contained also Raymond McGinley, later of Teenage Fan Club. That's how small the scene is. That so Raymond played guitar in that band, and we were playing a gig, and Sean was friends with a girl who actually shared a room with a girl I was seeing at the time, and he was pals with her, I think from Bellshill or something. And anyway, he came along to the gig, and it was a good fun gig. And at the end of the gig, he said, "Oh, I've been trying to get this band together with some sort of new pals, and it's not kind of working out and stuff, but we need a kind of drummer. The drummers are, do you want to come along and have a kind of..." So that was my sort of connection, and I went along. But I think, to be honest, I think you had, there was a sort of advert in the music shop, Sushil, and that preceded that by a few weeks, probably.
Yeah, possibly even a few months. So a wee bit more background there would be, I put up a notice in McCormack's, which was a really cool kind of music shop. People they had listening rooms there, and you could take a bass guitar and play with it, and probably never ever be able to buy it. So anyway, so I put a wee notice up there in McCormack's. A lot of bands would actually use that. It was really quite, this is pre-internet, pre whatever, emails and pre-text. So yeah, Ian Whitehall, I believe, responded to that. He was the original guitarist, who through bad timing had booked a holiday, fast forward a few months, and couldn't even play the first concert because he was too busy camping. Enter Jim. But anyway, I'll backtrack again. So then through Ian, I hooked up with Sean, and then we had actually had a few rehearsals with three of us, drum machines. We even had a female drummer at one point. I mean, literally just for two rehearsals.
Yeah, I remember the first rehearsal I came to. Yeah, she was there, and
yeah,
it was a bit awkward.
So yeah, it was maybe it was a few weeks, but I think it was probably closer to probably a couple of months. Anyway, it was a short period of time. I think that's fair to say. So yeah, so Ross met Sean through the art school. I met Sean via Ian, and as Ross said, bizarrely, we lived in the same little village, Bearsden, home of rock and roll, orange juice, blah blah blah. Pastos, of course. So yeah, that's the sort of two-pronged story. I'm sure Sean has a different one, and Jim might have a different one.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't all have different scenarios. Yeah. So, because there was a brilliant little film with John Peel, wasn't there, who visited Bellshill with Sean. So was this your hometown, by the way?
No, most definitely not. Bellshill, just to give you an idea, sort of industrial town, outskirts of Glasgow, and Bearsden, slightly more middle-class suburb. So slightly different kind of situations going on. But I mean, we're all Glaswegians at the end of the day. But to be billed or to be called the Bellshill Beat or whatever, it's slightly unfortunate because half the band were nowhere near Bellshill.
Right.
You know, so I mean, it could easily have been called the Bears Den Beat, if you think about it.
That's
So,
good. I never thought of that.
yeah, so I think it's just, you know what it's like, journalists or radio programs, someone comes up with a...
Telemetry, that's another one from Bearsden.
Also, it's Paul Taggy, yeah. Um, so, so yeah, I think probably one person came up
I
with
mean, in a way, the Bellshill thing probably is a sort of nexus of Sean and Norman Blake and Douglas Stewart from the BMX
yeah,
Bandits. I mean, they're the
yeah,
three who were childhood sort of pals and went out busking together and things in Glasgow city centre. And that was a connection as well. I mean, actually, I'd
yeah.
seen those guys out busking. They used to do this crazy, and Jim was involved in that as well. Joe McAlinden from Superstar and many others. They used to do this crazy busking thing in the centre of Glasgow where they'd have like 25 of them. Like,
Wow,
yeah, I mean, it was like, I mean,
I never thought that.
different on different weeks, but I remember because me and Raymond and Neil actually went out busking as well, like playing Sid Barrett songs and things
Wow.
and making no money. But we'd see
Right.
them absolutely coining it in. And of course, Jim McCulloch and Joe McAlinden and all that, they were all in the school orchestra, so they were like great players. You know, Jim's a good clarinet player, and Joe, did Joe play the sax as well as the violin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sax and violin,
So
yeah.
they were great. So that was really something when you see them in the street. So when they started showing up in these different bands, that was kind of interesting as well, because you'd seen them out in the street and then saw them at kind of some of these clubs like Splash One, and then their bands showed up on stage, and it was a sort of really. But I think that's sort of typical of a sort of. I mean, although Glasgow's a big city, but you know, it's a small scene, you know, at that time. And as you say, David, it's you know, no money, but lots of kind of ingenuity and sort of other kind of resources and sort of enthusiasm and ambition. And of course, time. You all had loads of time then, you know, maybe you were a student or maybe you're signing on or whatever. And
Yes, the signing on period was quite healthy for the indie kids of the 80s, really, wasn't it? The Job Seekers Allowance and Enterprise Allowance schemes. It sort of was an indirect grant for sort of indie pop.
absolutely. And the whole, you know, I mean, the student grant as well. And, you know, basically having a normal kind of society where people can kind of study and kind of live without having to be in abject poverty. Anyway, that's
Yes.
a podcast.
That's right. Gosh.
So with that sort of the sound that the band captured, right, you know, so quickly, because I remember, you know, I used to always record the John Peel show on my trusty TDK D90 cassette and then listen to it several times because there was such a lot of variety on it. Did you feel quite instantly the planets and the stars had lined up to create this, what is kind of the perfect C86 sound of Hang 10 and Whole Wide World?
Good question.
Ooh.
Well, going back to the initial notice board, I mean, I put down some influences,
Right.
that, and you know, they were fairly esoteric, I guess. Ravi Shankar was there, Kraftwerk were there, but most importantly, Orange Juice were there. So I think a band like Orange Juice, and as Ross mentioned, the postcard scene, and we were all kind of, that was just such a key driving force, and the fact that the scene was literally our doorstep was really, really inspirational. And seeing characters walking about or on the bus, people like Stephen Pasto, you know, doing normal things, it just made everything accessible. But so from a musical point of view, I mean, I had personally, from my point of view as a bass, I actually thought my bass was a guitar. So I always used to have the bass completely at zero and the treble as high as it would go, and I would be playing chords. It wasn't until we worked with producers many years on who told me about the concept of bass as well in a bit more detail. But Ross, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, I think it's sort of indicative of how much of a sort of like starting from zero it was when the band started. That, you know, when Sean saw me in Gods for All Occasions, of course, I was playing guitar and singing. I wasn't playing the drums at all. So, when I came to the first rehearsal, I was full of energy and enthusiasm, and probably sorely lacking on drumming chops. So it was very sort of rudimentary from my point of view anyway. So I think in a way that certainly precluded any muso kind of aspirations or pretensions sort of thing. It was quite straight ahead, and there was about half an hour, I think, of doing the sort of Mary chain standing up at the floor tom and snare sort of thing, until that really didn't kind of work sort of thing. And then I kind of sat down, and it all seemed to kind of click. But the first few singles, and it's been interesting rehearsing them again now. And in fact, I'd when we kind of got together at first a few months ago to start rehearsing, I'd sort of changed some of the drum things a bit, and to sort of make them a bit less noisy sort of thing. But the first thing Sushil said actually was like, "You've changed the way you play that in the hi-hat. No, it's too fancy now. You go back to the way it was before. It's that was driving it. The kind of just totally reckless kind of."
I don't even think it was. Yeah, I don't even think it was so much to do with being fancy. For me, it was. I think the big thing was playing on fours or playing on eights, and obviously one of them is more demanding.
Yeah.
Because you're playing twice as many times on the hi-hat. So yeah, I mean, things like that. But touching on where we are now, the really exciting thing actually is approaching these songs with from new perspectives. We are better musicians, and there's no point us pretending we can't play the drums or can't play the bass.
Yes.
But they've still got that real raw, sweet, youthful kind of energy, but we're injecting some of our imprint from our lives, really, from the last 30 years, because we have changed and we approach probably everything in life slightly different.
Yes, it would be a disaster if you didn't change, really. I know. Trying to hang on to one shoe. So did the Precious Recordings of London, suddenly they brought out your four John Peel, Janice Long sessions, didn't they?
Yeah, it was 2 of each.
And that was quite, because John Peel was this great, I don't know, beacon, wasn't he? He was one of the gatekeepers in our life. It was the music press, 3 weekly papers, there was the Record Mirror, then there was all these little venues in every city and town around the UK in this tiny little island. And then we had John Peel. So you got those sessions, which have obviously seen the light of day. And also C85, which is brilliant, because they've put out your single, which I never could get a copy of or even hear on YouTube, which was If You Were the Only Girl in the World, which was fantastic to hear that after all this time.
Yeah.
Ross?
Well, that was it. That was so incredible that that flexi disc, which Sushil put out on his fanzine, Pure Popcorn, number 4, if I'm right in remembering.
Oh God, I thought it was 3. But anyway, we'll pretend it's 4. Right, okay.
Yes.
So Sushil was doing this fanzine, and the flexi disc came out with the fanzine, and I suppose the big break for us was, I think it was Neil Taylor that made it Single of the Week in NME, which was, and it was a sort of double with the Legend on it as well. And the review is hilarious, actually. It's very complimentary about us, and then says something like, and even by his own terrible standards, the Legend lets the whole thing down with a sort of... But actually, I really like the Legend,
Yes.
and he was great. We used to stay with him in London, Jerry, actually, and he was very supportive of us, actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
he did. Yeah, he lets. Here's a very, very rare fact, which I don't think anyone knows. Ross, you might not even know this as well.
Right. A rare fact. I like that.
But that flexi disc. I was actually hoping the Pastels were going to be on it with us, because I'd approached Stephen. I had a lovely track of theirs, Big Blue Bus, on a cassette, and that's the track I really like to be on it.
Wow.
But Stephen, in his very gracious, generous manner, said, "Well, do you know what? I think a Legend would be good." So the recommendation came from Stephen.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even take away the Sonics. It was a lovely gesture, and I think it kind of proves the fanzine scene, the independent scene. It was all joined, and the radio scene,
Yeah.
and the venues. I mean, it was more joined up than it is now. You know, it was. We had to work harder because we couldn't just send 40 emails in one go. You know, each phone call, later years fax, it meant something really important. And each message that went out or each letter that was sent would reverberate in its own way. You know, some would say, as they sold you another fanzine, oh, by the way, there's a great one called, you know, Juniper Berry Berry. You know, so there was a real excitement of discovery, which now seems so easy now to do.
But also was really based on materials and things and
artifact,
kind of, which we all really love, you know. And like first demo we did, like, you know, people keep, and this one of the fan pages, you know, people keep posting like ones on different colors. It's not quite Blue Boy with all different colored in versions and things, but you know, it's interesting to remember how much care and time you sort of put into these things, you know, because you knew yourself, it was so, you cared so much for kind of, well, I don't know why these are sitting here, not especially, but, you know, when you get a sort of record or something, you know, it's, you know, you really just enjoy the whole kind of everything about it, you know, and then the music as well. So, yeah, all that was important. And I can't remember, did Peel play the flexi disc? Can you remember, Sushil, or did he hear that and then invite us for a session after that?
That's a good point. I mean, we gave a cassette to Radio Scotland. They obviously played the cassette. Then we recorded Peter Easton off the radio. Oh, how naughty. Then we pressed the flexi disc, and then that became the single of the week. But I'm pretty sure John Peel didn't play it. He would have certainly had it, or that might have picked up his ears and very soon.
Sean tells a nice story that when the producer, who I don't know, was it John Walters or?
It's probably John Walters at that stage, I think.
Yeah.
He phoned up Sean at his sort of parents' house, you know, and it's like, somebody from BBC on the phone for you. He's like, what? Hello, and basically invited us to do the session. But then afterwards, we sort of realised we absolutely didn't have any money at all. And Sean got back in touch and said, look, we really want to do the session, but we don't have any money to get to London, sort of thing, to do it. And so cue a bit more discussion. And then John Walters saying, okay, well, John's up doing a gig at the QMU at Glasgow University in a couple of weeks, so go and see him. And so Sean went along to that. I think I was at that as well, actually. And basically, John gave Sean 150 quid to get us all down to London to be able to do the session and bring all our gear and stuff, which was really fantastic sort of gesture. So
I know 150 quid in those days was a huge amount of money, actually.
I can't with that.
And like, probably train fare was like 25 quid or something at that time. And so that was great. So I think he and Sean particularly struck up a really good friendship, didn't they? I mean, I think when he came up to do that Bellshill thing that you mentioned, David, I think, you know, they had a really good kind of chat round there. So,
and can you remember that first John Peel show session that you did?
Yeah.
Because the second one was a cover, so that was quite different. So they're both quite distinct. Yeah, the first one Dale Griffin.
It probably was.
It was, yeah, because I remember the big white cowboy boots. I'm wondering who's this stood here? Because what they would do is the band would record the music, then they would tell the band to go away, have lunch. Secretly, the engineers and the producers were probably having lunch too, and some other stuff. And then they would come back and present to us the mix, as it were, to kind of approve. And it's kind of difficult to approve a bass that's been put through a flanger. I think that's what they did with mine. But anyway, it didn't work out till I was going back up the road. But yeah, it was Dale Griffin from What the Hoople. I mean, absolutely part of the whole lineage of rock and roll. David Bowie,
yes.
I don't think we really appreciated that at the time, particularly.
Yeah. And just there's obviously the whole BBC Radiophonic Workshop stuff with Derbyshire, you know, working a few doors down, and the Beatles would have had the pie, beans and chips in the canteen. There's a great picture. Well, there used to be a great picture. And
Yeah.
I made a bill of that. So we were hanging about in these hallowed halls.
Anyway,
Yes.
I mean, as for years afterwards, I had a couple of like little paper BBC cups,
Oh
just
yeah,
paper cups with BBC printed on it and that sort of
yeah.
50s kind of font kind of thing. That was just like, which I think were in the loo or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
I
all
took
that
half a
was
dozen home. That was our gifts back to bring back home, wasn't it, really?
yeah.
The souvenir shop, actually. What made you do a session on your second session of covers? What was the driving force behind doing Our Lips Are Sealed, The Kids All Right, Purple Haze, Listen to This? Purple Haze being a bit tricky, let's face it.
We used to do that live quite a lot,
Yeah.
in the kind of but again, I mean, I don't know. I suppose it's such a guitar-driven song, and it's maybe a bit unfair to talk about it because the guitar players aren't here. But I mean, it was quite a straight-ahead version of it. It wasn't particularly noodly version that we used to do live anyway. But
Yeah. I think the whole point of it was, as Ross said, we used to play that live, but we used to play the Monkees live, we used to play the Who live, we used to play Pink Floyd at soundchecks. So I think part of the fabric of a set list was a cover, paying tribute. So we all picked a song each. I know that for a fact because I picked "Listen to This" by Red Crayola, just as a kind of joke. I mean, I love Red Crayola. I didn't
Yes.
really expect. And I think that's one of the things John I don't think John was a fan of that session at all. But
no,
I think he was disappointed we didn't do more of our own stuff.
I know. I think that
Yes.
was one of the few that didn't get repeated very often, wasn't it?
Yeah. But
So-
yeah, and then the Go-Go's, I mean, that's a great pop song. So I think it was maybe a nice moment where we all curated, a playlist or a set list.
Yes. So 86, 87 is definitely that musical zeitgeist of indie pop, which obviously has your first album. And then Ross, you leave the band, don't you, at this stage?
Well, it was a wee bit after that, sort of 89. I I'd already started art school, as I mentioned, and I think when the Super Dragons kind of got going, I took 1 year out and then another year out, and I think another year out as well. And then in 89, I went back to the art school and sort of with my now yearly, oh, can I have another year out? And they said, oh, wait a minute, and kind of looked up the regulations and said, oh, wait, you've got to finish your degree in 7 years. You can't have another year out. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
you have to either come back now or leave completely, sort of thing. So I went back. My memory, I mean, it's a bit hazy, needless to say, but I think I went back in the September of 89, I think, and then I think that the sort of autumn tour, I think Paul did that with, I don't think I totally left. I think he sort of did that, and I don't know quite what I was thinking, how I was going to be able to try. I mean, I did do both at first, but anyway, it was just unfeasible. So I left, obviously.
I think there was more than just you and Paul, though. There was also the small thing that we call a drum machine and programming. That was kind of in the middle there
Yeah.
too. So it was quite messy kind of time because even on Love God is I mean, who plays what? Who programmed what?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I did a lot of programming with Sean, but I mean, I think probably a lot of that got changed eventually. But I think, I could see the future of that. And as a drummer, that's sort of obviously not that much fun, sort of thing. So, but
Did you, I mean, during that period, I mean, I don't know, with that, like I always put indie pop between the years of 83 to 87, which are the years of the Smiths. When they broke up, they felt like a certain party had come to an end. And a lot of those kind of indie bands that we loved so much had felt like the second album was a bit of a struggle and still not making much money. And also there was a kind of a bit of a new vibe in town, and ecstasy started to come along and people were looking at the dance music scene. How did that affect the band? Did you go from a certain drug taking, I don't know, but going from sort of perhaps drinking a bit of smoke into, oh look, we've started to get into the dance scene and the Chicago house scene and a guy called Gerald. Did that affect, was that part of the band basically?
I think we've always all had a healthy appetite for various forms of music. I mean, to be honest, from a musical point of view, This Is Our Art is quite a disjointed and probably more of a difficult album to record. I don't really think there's that much cohesion behind it. It was, after a really strong singles, I don't think we could all say it was a classic album. It's a classic album cover, and there's some classic album moments on there. But in some ways, even though Ross was kind of leaving and Paul was joining, and they're both bringing something fresh, or different things to the table. Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know what your take on it is, Ross, but I don't think any of them were straightforward. But answering your question about different forms of music, those different forms of music were there years before a guy called Gerald. I mean,
Right.
I was overdosing on Black Uhuru, and I'm sure Ross was doing the same with Public Image Limited, and I'm sure Jim was doing the same with Stefan Grappelli, and Sean was doing the same with Metal Urbane. So yeah, all these waves of new music are amazing, and they constantly refresh.
Yes,
But
it's
that
just not many bands manage to make that transition from one scene that they were in to another scene without looking a bit sort of behind the step, so to speak. So it was kind of interesting that you managed to sort of make that transition quite smoothly for your second album, and then sort of capture another zeitgeist.
I think it's interesting. Obviously, I'd left just before that came out, but I mean, I could sort of see, obviously looking back now, all those sort of things are a wee bit more kind of laid out in a line somehow, it seems. But at the time, of course, none of that stuff had happened, obviously. So it didn't feel like there was even before I left the band, although it wasn't so much a sort of dancey thing, I was really heavily into kind of on you sound kind of stuff, and Adrian Sherwood, and that kind of more, I suppose, more dub sort of influence, kind of dancey
Tackhead,
sort of thing.
was it Tackhead
yeah, that's it.
sound?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
And Keith LeBlanc, who's an incredible drummer, who we hung out with a couple of times in London and went to see him. Just amazing. I mean, he played on a lot of those classic hip hop records as well, which at that time was only, not even 10 years previously, sort of thing. So in a way, I could see all the different things that were coming into the development of that, um, that actually felt quite sort of like a sort of progression in the band rather than, well, of course, it wasn't like going to some other place because that other place hadn't been sort of invented yet, if you know what I mean. It was kind of, could see it
mm.
was just sort of testing out sort of new territory and things.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I
to
think
go,
yeah, you're touching on development there. I mean, I think technology is the key word here. I mean, things like synthesizers, drum machines, programming, computers, producers, studios. These are all things now that we take for granted. We have studios now in our bedrooms, but
Yes.
um, so yeah, I think access to technology and exchange as well from the dance floor to the dub room to the punk rock. I mean, a
But
band like
it was
Massive
just
Attack,
kind of interesting
it's like,
because
yeah,
speaking to people like, from, the Mighty Lemon Drops or the Primitives or the Wolfhounds, yeah, no. I mean, that kind of just took them straight out, that next kind of wave of 16, 18-year-olds and that next chapter of music. They were just like, oh, I'm not sure what we do. I think we'll just split up. I mean, that's a simple narrative, but with the Soup Dragons, you managed to sort of embrace it with a massive love hug, and off you go. And it's just, you become an unstoppable force. So it's just impressive.
yeah. I think at the core we are and still are. We're a garage band. We make rock and roll music, but we've wrapped up in various dressings, and maybe at that period there was sort of remix culture, breakbeats, sampling. Once again, that goes through to technology. We were using a lot of pads and triggers and guitar racks and things. So
Yes.
but it's
but I
quite
think it
nice to
also goes back. I mean,
oh,
for me, Sheila, it also goes back to, even, one of your first questions, David,
mm,
about, that list of influences that were up on the wall on the advert, McCormick's, that had, Kraftwerk and, a lot of different kind of sorts of music. And I think, as you mentioned there, Sheila, in the band, we've always had quite sort of Catholic taste sort of thing. And, I don't think, if you know what I mean, anybody in the band was probably listening to a lot of records that sounded like ours, if you see what I mean. The sort of influences were coming from a lot of different places, and the band sort of became this sort of sound that was more than the sum of its parts somehow. And that, I think, is the thing that then developed over the years, kind of thing, with lots of things coming from different angles and kind of
So,
making that into.
so basically, we were the John Peel show with guitars. Because when you think what the remit for John Peel show was, I mean that was a brilliant thing. You didn't know what you were going to get.
No,
You were
you
going
could
to
get
some
the Frank Chickens, the Bundu Boys, Aidan
exactly.
Sherwood meets,
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I said earlier too. We don't just eat pasta every night. We don't just wear, French flares every week. We relish and enjoy different flavors and
Slayers.
I know
yeah.
we all loved Ravi Shankar. Was it Woodstock or Monterey Pop Festival where we first saw him? I can't remember which one.
I think I'm not sure, but I've seen a brilliant clip where I think it might be Woodstock, where he's basically tuning up and doing sound check in front of the masses. And he
Yeah.
gets this amazing applause, and then he's like, "That was just my rehearsal," or something like that. Everyone's so stoned; they had no idea. They thought he just played this
That was
incredible piece. But yeah, and yeah, I mean,
excellent.
going to the Beatles, even the Beatles as well. These guys are just picking up all these influences, whether it's the blues guys from Chicago, or jazz musicians. Paul McCartney's dad was in a jazz band, and they were listening to a lot of these cut and paste radiophonic workshop artists as well. Derbyshire, Ivor Cutler. So these influences are coming from everywhere.
Yes, and people like the musical. I think musical was a big factor, wasn't it? Really. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the inspiration for the benefit of Mr. Kite came from a poster, wasn't it? That John just read all those kind of amazing names and put them into a song, which is kind of genius. So when you got the call from Nick to say, from Precious Recordings of London, was this the first time somebody had approached you to release the John Peel Janice Long sessions?
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
There was obviously, obviously it's a licensing thing, but I mean, obviously you'll know all those Strange Fruit ones that came out, I suppose, maybe in the 80s, 90s, maybe.
Yeah, I got a couple in the 90s. There was like New Order and Joy Division and Susan the Banshees.
Yeah,
And
they all had the same a bit like Nick's actually. They all have the same sort of cover. It's a black and white cover kind of thing. Yeah. So it also happened at the same time that, a couple of labels kind of approached us about putting out some of the kind of older material, even apart from the sessions. And so we had a chat with a couple of folk, and for various reasons it didn't kind of work out right. And we kind of brought it back to Glasgow really, and did this album, the sort of Raw TV album of the first singles and rarities, with Last Night from Glasgow, who we kind of knew, and I'd done a record with them before, and so that was kind of happening. And then I think it was sort of about the same time Nick sort of got in touch, didn't he?
Yeah, it did seem to be coming similar. Two buses of this is it a freedom or something like that?
Yeah, and I think it just sort of felt a bit more like, okay, there was sort of something happening, and to some extent we were kind of up and running doing something. So yeah, to kind of do that now seemed like a sort of nice idea. And also Nick is a lovely guy, and we saw the first couple of things that he did that obviously were kind of done with a total love of the bands, and and attention to detail and all the wee extra bits that he does and the postcards. And I mean, having worked with him on it, I mean, he went to such a sort of effort to find old photos and get a hold of Bledin Butcher and, Steve Double and all these guys, who'd photographed us in the 80s to get sort of prints from stuff. So anyway, I mean, Nick was great, but yeah, it seemed to be just kind of a bit of a swell of stuff happening that grew kind of exponentially somehow.
Yes, and obviously became very successful on his roster of releases. So then at that stage, did you have any ideas of making music together again and recording?
I think probably not. I think it was very much, we were just on a bit of a high that there was another artifact that we could hold and
The
and
artifacts.
and look at the sleeve and the lovely coloured vinyl. So no, well, I might be wrong here, but I certainly didn't have any expectations. But I think the more time went along, a few months down the line, I think people are probably wondering, "Oh, you'll be playing live, won't you?" I think we all got that, and then it just kind of evolved into
Yeah, it was
maybe.
after, a few months after the Last Night from Glasgow album came out, which, interestingly, just as a sort of sidebar, when we spoke about that, of course we had and that was really nice getting sort of together to just discuss what could be on that. And we, because first of all, one of the labels we talked to, they sort of, were encouraging us to kind of dig out lots of stuff, live things and stuff. And we looked at a bunch of stuff, but I don't know, didn't sort of feel like we wanted to do some really kind of, well, not baggy, that's maybe the wrong way. That came later. Like a kind of, 6 set thing or something. And in fact, what I think we felt, the way Sushil referred to this as our art when that finally came out, which was technically our first album, although there'd been a couple of compilation albums, and one in France and one in the States. But we sort of missed a moment to put out a kind of first record, in May, probably 85, 86 or something, with a lot of those first singles on it and that kind of very early energy, very guitar driven sort of thing. So in a way, the Last Night from Glasgow album sort of plugged that gap a little bit and almost kind of thought, well, if we'd done a first album around this time, this is maybe something like it might have sort of sounded like. So I don't know. I think that had been out for a little while, and
Did you
yes,
have any issues with publishing to get the material? Because somebody did mention about the lack of, well, not lack, but the omitting this track called Rosewood Sky from a Sounds 7-inch EP that came out in '87. Was that one of those? I mean, was that one of those releases you just couldn't get the rights to?
I think we were
No,
talking about that at rehearsal last night.
wow.
Do you
No,
know?
no, that was this always awesome as well. But I
I
think,
Well, do you know, somebody brought that up, and none of us could even remember how it went. So I think it's probably unlikely that we'd have been chasing that one to put on a record kind of thing. Okay, I mean, there was a lot of different recordings and a lot of sessions and different things, but yeah, I mean, obviously, before This Is Our Art album came out, we'd signed to Sire Records, and that's a sort of slightly different enterprise, obviously. But no, I mean, I don't think that was really a big factor in what we selected, Sushil, was it? In my memory, I mean,
no, I think we probably knew, we could probably remember what were the standout tracks just from memory. And if Rosewood Skies was one of them, we would have pursued it, but there was no point pursuing something like that. I don't think. So
I mean,
yeah, I think building on what Ross is saying, I think that process of assembling that actually, and that was a good point. It probably was our first album, and that's maybe why I feel This Is Our Art was a bit stilted. We had kind of missed the moment. That almost felt like
yeah,
not the tricky third album, but the sort of troublesome second album.
yeah,
So yeah, compiling this compilation was lots of fun actually, because we knew we were bringing fresh stuff to the table, having a flexi disc appear on vinyl. That was a moment itself as a secret track, things like that. Coloured vinyl. So yeah, there was an excitement on bringing out another new piece of,
Yes,
as Factory Records would say, product. So yeah, I think that was a good driving force.
But then, obviously archiving, we love archiving at a certain age. And then obviously Nigel Tassell brings out his book, What Happened to the C86 Kids, as well. And you obviously appear in that one as well. So when did somebody mention the possibility of playing as a band again?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think, sorry, that was your actual question. Sorry. And I think when the Last Night from Glasgow album came out, I saw a couple of promoters, I think, were sort of interested in, and there was a particular guy who had been a real fan of the band. And I think he got in touch and sort of sketched a plausible scenario out, let's say, of a sort of short tour to sort of... and I think, I mean, at first... we're all pretty busy and doing lots of different things. We're not short of stuff to do, as has become apparent when we're trying to organize rehearsals and the tour and everything. So, I think we just all felt at first it wouldn't really be feasible to kind of, step back into that moment where, as we discussed, you had all the time in the world to rehearse 5 days a week for 6 hours a day and kind of, do all that sort of stuff and tour endlessly if that was your heart's desire. So I think at the beginning we all kind of felt the other ones wouldn't want to do it. So there's a bit of kind of like nobody kind of bringing it up till it sort of suddenly kind of came more into focus, and then we sort of chatted around it a bit and it kind of slowly sort of, after a bit of... We've got a kind of... Well, now we've got about bloody 10 different kind of WhatsApp groups for different aspects of what's going on in the band. So we've got a funny main WhatsApp group called Pure Popcorn, actually, after Sushil's fanzine, that we chat all these things through on. So that's been quite a nice platform, actually, which of course didn't exist in any way at the time the band was around first time round, just to kind of chew things over and share ideas and all that stuff. So it really kind of came out of that. And then, the promoter had proposed a sort of a short tour together, and we had a look at that and it kind of went from there.
And when did you have the next idea to record new material? Because that's, obviously, thinking, right, this is going to, we're actually thinking of some new tracks to record and also videos as well, which is amazing.
Yeah. I think we would probably all agree that there was no point doing something like this if you weren't bringing something new as well to offer. And certainly I was very clear on that. I did not want to just keep doing what we used to do. So it was great when we decided, why don't we knew we'd have to get together at some point and rehearse. But we actually wrote... Sean's always got lots of songs, so he shared one or two ideas. They kind of grew arms and legs, but there was one I proposed. Sean had given a wee outline, and then I came up with a chord structure and recorded a demo of which within about 8 minutes of receiving this file. And then very quickly I suggested, why don't we all... let's try a co-write. So it was lovely. We actually wrote together via WhatsApp. So I know it sounds a bit bizarre, but it was quite a bizarre way to kind of work. Sounds kind of forced when you describe it like that, but it felt really quite exciting. It was like...
Yeah, it sounds bizarre, but it didn't feel bizarre doing it, because actually it was just, as you say, it was like... It wasn't like somebody spending a week getting their magnum opus together or whatever it's called. It's just later somebody would like be playing it on their phone and recording it on another phone or something, and then send it back on a dodgy video and see.
Yeah.
Like, oh
Um,
no, that's too much, Okay, well, what about this, and all of
yeah.
that. So that was genuinely exciting, I think.
It was,
Yes.
and even in the rehearsal room, I remember coming in, Ross, and I kind of came because we're collaborating with Music Declares Emergency. We're working with those folks who are doing brilliant work about raising awareness about the planet and what kind of situation we're in at the moment. But anyway, coming into the rehearsal room, because I'd been singing this motif, no music on a dead planet, and I'm not really a singer, right? But just having the confidence to present that to yourself and Jim and being encouraged. And then, before you know it, you've got Fred from the B-52s singing that. So, it was very organic and lovely the way some things failed and didn't work, but we move along quite quickly, or some things just grew.
Yes.
Not even necessarily with all the human beings there, So it was a nice mismatch of technology. 4 of us on WhatsApp, 2 of us in a room, 3 of us in a room, 1 of us in a room, 4 of us in a room, and then before you know it, turn on the bright lights and we're making videos.
Yes. Well, absolutely. Big. And again, Fred from the B-52s must have felt like you'd stepped up quite the gear really on this front.
Yeah, all credit to Sean. Sean's a good friend of Fred's and collaborated with him. Fred and Yoko Ono, etc., etc. But to get Fred, we were all buzzing about that. And once again, it was just a simple WhatsApp message, and within pretty quickly, I'm in, kind of thing.
I mean, it wasn't like anything, big scale of like, my people talk to your people, and it was just like Sean messaged him, and he said, yeah, that sounds great, and sent a few videos and did a couple of things, and so it was again very organic and not kind of much more from the bottom up rather than from the top down somehow. I mean, I suppose last time round, of course, there was a lot of structure involved in the band and management and all the rest of it, as was always the case. And this time it feels a lot more bottom up, and, we're kind of, and, there's maybe a point where we might need to do something about that if we kind of keep doing things. But, at the moment that's working okay. And, just doing things with, and even, the guy who made the videos, a great guy called Dave Dunbar, who we're friends with and runs a wee sort of centre near where we are, a sort of arts venue. And I'd done some work with him before, and we kind of talked to him about it. And I mean, he was just brilliant. They were absolutely made on a shoestring. And, we brought some things to the table, and he brought all his tool skills and great editing and stuff. And I mean, we basically shot the 2 videos in one day, half a day almost kind of thing. And then we went out in Sushil's little boat at the end of the day and shot some bits on that. And Dave kind of waved his magic wand on it and made them both look really kind of fun and great and exciting.
Yes, very exuberant as well. So what was the first rehearsal like when you got into the same space? Was that quite a nerve-wracking experience? And sort of, what was the song or were you just going to have a jam and then see what happened? Or did you, what was the first song you had a go at, playing?
Was the first one in your head?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. The first rehearsal wasn't with 4. It was 3, wasn't it? Because Sean obviously lives in London, and we're still up here in Glasgow. So I think it was just probably in my conservatory or something like that, acoustic, quite low key, and me keep telling the guys, can you turn down a wee bit because the dog is back next door.
And when Sushil says his conservatory, it sounds very grand, but actually it's a tiny little bit on the back of his house, I think.
It's a small space with like brushes on your kit. But it was just a laugh, but it felt like a laugh, and that was good.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to feel that there was still a kind of connection there and an energy and a kind of dynamic. And although we weren't playing loud, but I think that, as you say, it was definitely there. And
wait a minute, had you not got together with Jim previously? Is that how it started? Was it yourself and Jim, and then it was the conservatory? Did I get that mixed up?
No, I had played the drums on a thing that Jim had done Well, that's a couple of years
Ah,
ago now. It was for a Pale Fountains kind of
yeah.
tribute, Mick Head sort of tribute thing. Which I don't know if that ever came out actually, but yeah, we did that in a wee studio in Glasgow, and actually it was in Lechunky where we recorded the single.
Oh, okay.
But that was with Dave McGowan and Chris from Bell and Sebastian,
See, that's like the Rolling
an
Stones.
all-star
Right.
lineup. Well, and me.
Yes, rock and roll circus.
But no, I mean that was a different thing. So it wasn't. No, I felt when we got together, that was the first time we'd really. Although, of course, I mean, Sushil's. I don't know if you've ever spoken to Sushil about his fantastic future pilot project, but over the years, he's also played with like dozens and dozens of different people. And I did something one time, a gig with Future Pilot, but that was probably 15 years ago now or something. But that was great fun too. But I don't think that was.
No,
I
that
the drums on some of Jim's solo things as well, Green Peppers and things. Did a few days in the studio, but that was more just kind of because.
Yeah. So that going back to conservatory, so that was the first get together kind of thing. I think there was food involved, probably not of the highest quality. I think it might have been hot dogs and something, but I think we probably spent just as much time snacking than we did playing.
Yeah,
right.
Or making tea. I mean, if I was there, I think that would probably be the case.
So it was a little bit like the return of the Magnificent Seven, but in your case, a few less. But it was. Did you feel like you were on a mission with this kind of 6-date tour, which is quite intense, isn't it? There's no days off. You're going to hit it quite hard.
Well, actually, no, there is one day off, I think.
1 day off in London.
But yeah, I think it's that pre-Halloween, so we can get our costumes ready or something. But yeah, no, it's still quite intense. I mean, come on, let's face it. Some of us are older,
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, but I know that sometimes you can't have too many days off. Especially, I guess you're sort of putting this in your sort of half-term reading week, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm bringing my slippers, and I might even bring. I might have it here actually.
It is quite intense, but
hot water bottle. We all love a hot water bottle. Don't worry.
Yeah,
that's a life changer. As long as your feet are hot, as I always say.
Exactly. I mean, some of our rehearsals have been like 6 hours long, and that's a long time. So,
well, of course, we're all doing these. So I'm being a professor of art during the day yesterday, and then it's from 6 o'clock till midnight. We're rehearsing at the old kind of rehearsal studio in Maryhill and knocking 7 shades of shit out of the drum kit. So, and Jim's getting up early for his stuff, and so I think the tour actually. Once we get on the tour, that might actually feel like it's a bit of a kind of breeze because we've got some support there, and we've put a team of folk together that are.
It is quite the rock and roll circus, isn't it? It's quite a big lineup of bands here. I mean, it's not just like one band and a small. This is quite like a little festival. Have you looked at it as a celebration of that period?
Different nights though, so it's not all the same night. Unfortunately, that would have been great, but just that nowhere seems to really do 3-band lineups anymore. I mean, that seemed to be really normal back in the day, but now I guess everywhere's got a curfew at 11 or whatever, so it's hard to do that. So yeah, it's the Bandits are some of the dates, and Vaseline's in Glasgow and London, but with a full band lineup. So I always love seeing Vaseline's with the full band. It's a sort of different beast actually from Francis and Eugene, and the Bandits are. We saw them at this Glasgow's Pop wee festival thing, which is fantastic, which has had a couple of showings in the summer at Glasgow University Union, and the Bandits played at the last one, and they're fantastic just now. That was the first time I'd seen this lineup, and they're sounding just brilliant, very tight. So yeah, I mean,
that's really impressed.
Exactly.
We've got. Let's not forget we have Stephen from the Pastels for the Pastels DJ set in Glasgow. So yeah, there is a circus vibe. But yeah, ideally, if they were all going on all the dates, that would have been incredible. But I think we've got a nice mix and match.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Heavenly, dear old Heavenly, Amelia Fletcher band, they reformed for a few dates, and there were people coming from all over the country and someone from America. Have you had quite a lot of interest of people thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to have to come and see this?
I think we've got Germany. I think we've got Japan, and I'm sure Ross.
And the States as well. I don't know. There was a couple of folk at that Glasgow's Pop thing who said they were coming over.
That's right.
So there's lots, and to be honest, there's lots of. We've got a couple of sort of totally diehard fans who are fantastic and have kept the faith over the years, and they do some fan pages, and they there's loads of folk on those, a lot of folk from the States, asking if we're coming over there and Europe and things. So we'll see. But it's great, just to backtrack a little bit about the other bands. I mean, we're just so happy to have all them playing with us. And again, it's very organic and sort of just, we still know all these people, and it's not, it's just very informal. And, with Stephen, I mean, Stephen was such a fantastic early supporter of the band. And in fact, I think it was our first gig outside of Scotland, wasn't it? There was supporting Crystals in Carlisle.
In fact, Stephen even name-checked us in one of the songs. I think there's a bootleg of that somewhere kicking about.
Oh, I'd like to hear that.
He says, I think, was it not Roadrunner? And it says something like, and I'll be listening to the Soup Dragons demo tape or something. But it's one of those moments. He even helped us carry the amp. There was a real kind of.
Oh yeah, and I mean, Stephen is just fantastic. I mean, he's such, the record shop that he runs with others there, and all the amazing stuff that they do, all the gigs that they put on. I mean, we were just kind of discussing it last night at rehearsals. It's like, oh, did you go to that? Did you go to the fan club album launch? No, I missed it. But there's just so much kind of happening, in Monorail and the record shop that Stephen runs. That's just, it's a really important kind of cultural, musical kind of place in the city. It's.
How did
Sorry. Sorry, I don't want to be rude, but I'm going to have to go in the next minute.
That's absolutely fine. I was just going to say, just quickly, the set list. Well, how did you manage to put your set list together? And what have you put in? What have you taken out? And
oh God!
Show your board.
Oh yeah, wait a minute.
Right.
I'll need to wait a minute till I get this.
I mean, you won't be showing the board. Obviously, this is just a podcast, but we can tease you.
But we can do the board. Yeah, because obviously, the set list, the running order is going to be vital, isn't it? I wasn't sure if you're going chronologically or whether you were thinking we need to have a few slow numbers in here, a few quick.
Yeah,
sorry, hold on a second.
That's exactly what we're going through at the moment.
Wait a second.
So is it still work in progress, the set list?
Yes.
And what's it like to play, things like Hang 10 after all these years? Does it still have that? Wow, that is still a brilliant song. Do you still have that youthful enthusiasm and excitement? That classic 2.5 minutes of pure pop.
So actually, it does. But I think what we're all amazed at is at how complex some of these songs are. I mean, there's a lot of key changes. There's a lot of unusual.
In no order whatsoever.
Wow, that's very exciting.
Is it reversed, or can you see it right
now?
No,
I can see it. I'm just kind of excited, actually. So what on my left is that? There's a lot of songs you've got to pick, haven't you?
Yeah, there's on one side it's a sort of big list of lots that we're sort of messing around with, and on the other side, on this side, it's ones that we're kind of basically we've worked up that we can choose a set list from, sort of thing. So it's
yes. Oh, nice. Is that truck train driver?
Oh, well spotted. Gosh, that's all TBC. We've only played that in my head at the moment.
Yeah, we haven't done that one, but But I mean, there's probably about 30 songs that we've kind of messed around with, and probably about, I don't know, it's 1, 2, 3. I mean, there's like 25 or more that we kind of could go on the set list sort of thing. So,
just have you got your merch sorted out for the tour?
Oh, Ross, that's your speciality, isn't it?
yeah, that's kind of spent a lot of time doing that. But it's been
Listen,
fun. Yeah.
sorry, chaps, I'm going to have to go.
Okay, yeah. Look, thank you ever so much.
No problem. I mean, feel free to ask that question clean, and Ross will
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
you everything about
Yes,
merch.
so Ross, on merch, because we love merch and people
I know.
will want souvenirs, won't they, on this?
Quite
tour?
right.
Yeah.
Listen, David, lovely speaking with you. And
Yes,
Ross,
thanks a lot.
All right. I'll see you soon, Sushil, okay?
See you now. Bye
I'll
bye.
give you a shout. We need to firm up those next ones, the early October ones, those dates. All right.
Brilliant. Catch you.
There you go. Good luck on all of it. Yes. So what are you working on with the merch store?
Yeah, we it's all done. So it's just it's all getting made just now. So of course it's one of these things where, you know, we first started talking about that 6 months ago. And to be honest, I one of the things has been, from a sort of creative kind of point of view, it's been interesting. Again, you know, I've worked for so long, not on my own. I always work with other people and do things, but you know, as a sort of solo creative practitioner, I suppose, mainly doing art stuff and music things as well. But it's been interesting working in this creative unit with 3 other people again. I'd sort of forgotten what that's like, where it's really fantastic actually, where it's not even a democracy, because if somebody doesn't like something, you just don't do it. Or if somebody asks us something and we don't think it's somebody does think it's a good idea, we just don't do it. Or even with the set list, if there's a particular song that somebody just doesn't want to do, we just don't do it. So there's a couple that I'm sure people will be disappointed we're not playing, because I don't know, a couple of folk didn't want to do it. But anyway, with the merch stuff, so I did a million different designs at least, and over the weeks showed them all to the guys, and it was really hilarious, because, you know, 2 of them would be like, "Oh yeah, that's brilliant, let's do it, let's go with that one." And I'd be like, "Oh, thank God for that." Then the next guy would come and say, "No, I really hate that." You know, it's like, oh, fucking hell. Start again with it all. And even doing the covers and everything for the singles, you know, my God, I've never done so many versions of something. There are about half a dozen completely finished different versions of the cover. You know, there's 2 different colored vinyls, there's 2 different sort of similar kind of covers, sort of different colors and things. So actually that's been great fun and really interesting, you know, just from a sort of perspective of having other people putting their input in and not just being able to do exactly what you want to do all the time. It's been quite instructive again doing that. So anyway, that's been good fun. So we've got a bunch of stuff. There's half a dozen new t-shirts and various other bits and pieces, and kind of based on some of the old logo things and some new things, and that kind of mixture of stuff, some more stencily things, and so hopefully that'll be that'll go down well.
And do you feel like we're doing the tour and these dates that you'll be quite, you know, like in each other's company? Do you feel like you'll be looking at recording or writing some new material while you've got the time, you know, during that kind of week together?
I don't think during that week. I mean, I think, to be honest, it'll be pretty full on, as you sort of said, just kind of doing the tour. And although I mean, obviously it's a very short tour by any standards, but you know, there's still, I mean, of course, it's not like the Midwest of America, but you know, it's still a couple hours travel from some more, you know, of course, from different venues and sound check and everything. I think, you know, although we've rehearsed quite a lot, and you know, it's not so convenient with Sean being in London. So, you know, he was up again this week for a couple of long rehearsals, which is great. So I think to be honest, what we've always sort of been saying the last couple of months to each other really is that we really want to focus on this wee tour, get that right, really energize all the songs, be playing really well, feel that we're doing a really good show, and kind of doing something that's connecting with an audience again. Whether that's in a small place, a bigger place, or whatever. And I think then if we feel that's going well and that's something, as Sushil's always a good barometer, he doesn't really have any interest in just kind of going through the motions of it all for whatever reason. And to be honest, it's not, I think a 6-date tour is never going to be a mega money spinner. So, we're not, we want to make it sound great and make the shows great. And, we were always a good live band, and hopefully that should work. And then I think basically if we can do that and feel that, we put on a good show, literally and metaphorically, then maybe after that we'll think again about, is there some more things down the road. I mean, I think, we're definitely thinking maybe next summer could be some more live things, or but kind of in a way we just want to kind of focus on this thing and see how it goes, and as you mentioned with the other bands, and just have a really memorable night. And
Yes.
and then at first, of course, at the beginning of the process, it was there was a sort of, weren't sure what the dynamic was going to be between everybody, and sort of pals, but it's maybe different when you don't see somebody for years at a time, and then you're suddenly with them like every minute for a week or something. But I think that was great. When Sean's been up rehearsing, he's I live kind of out of town, about an hour away from Glasgow now, actually, just on where the River of Glasgow kind of opens out to the Firth of Clyde. So he came and stayed when we were doing the rehearsals and things. So that was great, bit more of a chance to kind of.
Yes, it must feel quite like one of those, I don't know, Peter's Friends. That was one of those 80s films, wasn't it? Or one of those kind of ones where a load of people get together again who'd been together at, I don't know, university, and sort of go, what's been happening with you and your life? And everyone has their kind of stories, don't they? And it's been...
that's interesting, because it is sort of like that. But the thing that's not like that is that actually there's this thing in the middle of that. That's the band was this... thing that even at the time, and I'm sure this is something that as you've spoken to so many different people, that it's interesting how different people are kind of in a band. And it's funny how I kind of mentioned it before, but it's almost like the band becomes this thing that's more than the sum of its parts. And it's so true of so many different bands that even though it wasn't the kind of music we were all listening to, this is how the band kind of ended up sounding, we sort of in a weird kind of way. And the sort of dynamic of it, and all the different things that we've done in the sort of 3 decades since. Of course, the band has this sort of place in people's imagination somehow, that seems still interesting somehow. So
I think from all these interviews, I think most people look back and think, God, that was such a strange time. We were younger. That was also it was like the most intense thing. It was 24/7 for years and years. It was a bit like doing, I don't know, some form of national service, and then it finishes, and then you go on and do your life. But then you have this thing that has almost been a bit of a, no, I've never told anybody about this. I was in this band, and people. And then over the last 5 years, there's all these, books and films and compilations and cherry red records, and suddenly it keeps coming out. The Pandora, the box comes open, doesn't it? And people have been kind of curiously looking at it again, and I think there's quite an emotional journey that everyone has. Is like, wow, that was me when I was at that age, and this is what I was doing at that time, and life seemed relatively easy and simple, even though we were all moaning probably and feeling angsty. It was like, but I didn't have those other worries that I have in later life. It's different. But it was like, this was such a a period. It was such an intense period. So I think it's kind of quite an emotional experience that everyone's had. Having that kind of is often the 5-year narrative, isn't it? As I've kind of often go about, the 12-month honeymoon, the John Peel session, you tick that, the NME, tick that, Melody Maker, first album, second album, then the tricky third album, and then
And the other thing, of course, which is key to that, is that at the time you've just got no idea how sort of privileged that all is, and how it's actually, if you try to do that from a sort of cynical marketing point of view, it's almost impossible kind of thing, that you just sort of fall down the stairs of all these things that they just kind of happen. And when you think back on how quickly the Soup Dragons played the first gig, Sean was working in this clothes shop and Bobby Gillespie came in and said, he'd heard the tape and quite liked it. The Primals were playing at the Splash One Club. Did we want to support them? And fantastic, yeah. So we did that. And then folks saw us there. And within a few months, we were playing decent sized shows in London. It was kind of crazy, sort of fast, But, I think a lot of that, although at the start, there was a lot of kind of everyone chipping in lots of song ideas and things. And we were all kind of writing stuff in other bands and things. But again, pretty quickly, the songs Sean was bringing in were the ones that really were sounding like the Soup Dragons. And I maybe even said it the last time we chatted, but, that first couple of years of the band, I mean, he was so prolific. It was incredible, every rehearsal. I mean, we rehearsed a lot in various of the grungy rehearsal rooms of Glasgow. But, every week he'd bring in a couple of total bangers, and we'd kind of knock them into shape. And it was really, really amazing. And, simple chord patterns, wee guitar bit on top, really, really great, So the thing is, actually, without a kind of gifted songwriter and, that's because, you get bands that, I don't know who, like XTC or something, have lots of good writers, but almost feel like they're sort of conflicting. Some different singles sound totally different from each other. And I don't know, but, I guess in most bands, it sort of pans out this way. You get one writer or a couple of writers, but those songs were really incredible, and the thing is, I suppose you don't get that any success or, it's all based on the songs really. So that was great, that we'd this sort of magic sort of writer.
I do find that that whole topic quite interesting, is like what makes that record a kind of a classic, but whether, and I'm not talking about, like one that sold 1 billion, but a song that you can hear 40 years or 50 years later, an indie song, you think, oh yeah, this is absolutely still memorable. It's, and John Peel had that ear that I always felt like he would play all these records during the week and then he'd put his show together and that was like a reggae song, a rap song. He always had that ability to play the best track, didn't he? Somehow he had that ear.
But the thing is, it all made sense somehow, in that kind of 2 hours or whatever it was, it kind of was this sort of tapestry of sounds that sort of all together was this...
it was always like, by the way, you should be listening. You should hear this, even if you're not going to go and buy a copy. It's still worth it, whether it's Napalm Death or whether it's, a Bulgarian folk song or just a pure indie pop song, which is
all back to back probably.
And probably at the wrong speed, but we still thought it sounded good.
Last night, we were rehearsing and we're playing Hang 10 and. I was kind of sitting there kind of as we went through that, actually thinking, it's actually kind of bizarre sort of song with all these really daft backing vocals and did. It's like, where did that come from, And a lot of that was just in the studio when we were kind of, or the rehearsal room, kind of working those things out. But it's all these wee bits that sort of make records kind of memorable and kind of, and again, I don't think you can... It's just maybe it is a sort of ignorance of daftness of youth or something, that you just don't really know what you're doing. So you do something interesting somehow. I don't know.
Yes, I think there's such a sort of the planets lining up kind of thing because occasionally there'll be one of those programs that I don't know, the BBC would put together. I'm not just picking on the BBC, but they'll get, a name produced, like, was it Mark Ronson, Guy Chambers, great musicians, great singers, and they'll say, look, we're going to try and compose this single or write a classic song, and they go through that process. I've watched one of these, and then they end and they play it, and you think, that was so mediocre, though. It's like it was like they've got the best of everything, but actually the song doesn't have that catch, and you think, what makes that catch? Like Hang Ten or any of those songs. It's just something quite unique, but you can't feed it into a computer and say, write me that brilliant indie song or acoustic song. It just doesn't work, does it? Something magical happens in that creative process.
And I think also sometimes the more time you spend on something, the less interesting it gets. It just flattens it out, and so no, absolutely. So
yes. Anyway, look, I'm so pleased, and just curious, because of the Glasgow connection, how come you never signed or didn't go for Creation Records? How come Alan didn't sort of want to snap you up, or had you already gone for Sire Records at that stage?
No. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I suppose actually, at the very beginning, I mean, Alan, I mean, he's actually been kind of helpful this time round a little bit. I mean, just Jim had a wee chat with him actually probably a year or so ago now, just when we were thinking seriously about could the live thing work again and who would be good to kind of work with and things. And I don't know. I suppose at that time Creation were, although of course they had lots of sort of Scottish folk involved, I don't know, they were so kind of London based, but Alan was always kind of on the periphery of things. But I guess quite early we hooked up with these guys at Big Life, who we worked with pretty much all through it. In fact, Sean's still working with Tim Parry now. But they were really good. They saw us at an early London show and came to chat with us. I mean, they were sort of management, really. I mean, they did put records out sometimes, but so I guess they kind of they got our ear, and yeah, I mean, they were great guys, and so yeah, I don't know.
Yes, who knows? It's just kind of interesting to these decisions. I mean, it all worked out, didn't it? And
yeah,
and everyone's
and
still
in Edinburgh there was a kind of there's a label 53rd and Third.
That was was that the shop assistants, wasn't it? They were on that.
Yeah, and Stephen was involved in that as well. Stephen Pastelin. There's a guy called Sandy McLean who he's in that. I think he's in. I don't know. There's so many of these things now. I think he's in the Teenage Superstars film. He's a Canadian guy actually, and he'd been in Scotland for years, and it was a sort of also a distribution. I can't remember, one of the cartel, I think, things, and so they had the label and the sort of distribution thing in Edinburgh. I think they did a couple of the Bandits early singles and maybe the Boy Hairdressers as well. I can't remember. I think they did that. Okay, anyway, we sort of, they were kind of good to us as well, and we kind of, so I don't know. I mean, I guess at the time, obviously Creation has always been sort of interesting, but I suppose at that 85 sort of moment, it was still kind of nascent-ish sort of thing at that point.
Yes. Yeah, it's just, I just love that's such an interesting period because there were the bands, there was the venues, there was the labels, there was the fanzines. I mean, it was, just a golden period of creativity, really. It was just the one shame is there wasn't enough video and photography of that time, but I mean, that's...
Well, the irony is there probably was quite a lot of video, but I mean, if it's anything like ours, some of which costs an absolute bloody fortune, be lucky if anyone's got like an old knackered VHS copy of it. I mean, and in fact, there's sort of I think the only version of Hang Ten is one that was on the chart show, which somebody taped off that, which...
Yes, I think the NME brought out one of those VHS cassettes. Oh, I've got it here.
Oh, yeah.
You weren't on one of these where you Carry On Disarming.
I don't know. Quite possibly, but I don't know. It doesn't look familiar, but
Yeah. I just say
yeah.
it's not really in super. No, the shadowy men on a shadowy planet. Sandy Shores, Frank Sidebottom, Spaceman 3, the Sundays. The no, I don't think you are on it.
It sounds like a couple of years after us, maybe. I don't know. Oh no, I mean it's a shame because I think there's probably, I mean, when I think how much all these videos used to cost, even in the kind of indie schmindy days, it's just incredible, so expensive, compared to, well, the ones that we made now, kind of thing. But
Yes, I know that would have been $9.99, that video.
yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
as she was sort of mentioning earlier, I mean, the irony is actually, and we've been finding this in the sort of digital world of putting out this new music that we on the record we were quite insistent that it's a double A side single. We like both tracks equal sort of thing, which of course back in the day was perfectly normal, double A side single, but digitally it just doesn't. The digital world doesn't understand that, so we had to do a lot of jiggery pokery to make it actually an EP digitally, although it's only got 2 tracks on it, because the algorithms just didn't understand there was sort of 2 tracks involved and would just prioritize one of them, and so the other one would get lost. So it's interesting. Every day is a school day in the 21st century, I think. So,
yes, I know. You'll have to get on. Are you on TikTok? TikTok?
Not TikTok, no, unfortunately not.
No,
we've got a bunch of stuff on Facebook. That's something we need to work on a bit, I must admit. But it is funny how, although, back in the day, really there was the chart show and there was like 2 or 3 other ones you could sort of see your kind of favorite indie band video on. But now, of course, everything is available all the time, everywhere. But as we're always, as I'm always telling my students, just because you put something online doesn't necessarily mean it's particularly public, because you still got to find it, And
yes.
Although we've kind of made these videos and put them online, it's still kind of, of course, if somebody sees you sharing a link in your bubble, that's fine. You can click through, but actually to sort of, I don't know, to share things effectively. I mean, I guess it's there's just so much out there, it's hard to kind of see things in the.
Yes. I think the good days there was a gatekeeper who created it.
Yeah.
But which was good, which was kind of bad in itself, because a few artists and bands didn't get on that kind of some of those shows, or got slagged off in the NME. Whereas now that doesn't happen. But then where do you find stuff? Which is kind of where I struggled when John Peel passed away. So yes, who do you trust? I know it's very tricky. Anyway, look, Ross, thank you ever so much for this. And if you want, I can send you the link, and then you can put it on your Facebook page.
That would be great. That'd be lovely.
Yes, well, look, good luck on all this. I really hope you manage to sort of get through the next month without any flu, COVID.
Oh my God, don't say that. I know.
Well, actually, the reason I had a COVID and flu injections yesterday, and that's why I'm it feels like someone just punched me in the arm.
I haven't had mine yet, actually, which I really should. Our local place is terrible. No, fingers crossed, because my God, it'd be a nightmare if after all this, all the kind of preparation and all the kind of joyous kind of celebratory preparation for it, we don't get to.
You do want to just get to the end, don't you, and think that was good. You can move on. But look, good luck. I'm really pleased, and I really loved the singles. I loved the music for the No Music for a Dead Planet. I think that was the song. So that was absolutely fantastic. Anyway, look, good luck for everything, and thanks again for your time.
Lovely to talk to you again, David. Okay.
Take care. See you later. Bye bye. There you go, dear listener. You get the gist. Or you just realise that's the end of the interview. Massive thank you to both members of the Soup Dragons. I think there's 4 or even 5 now for this particular tour that's going to be happening at the end of October 2023. Go and check out their social media platform sites, buy a ticket. It will change your life. Also listen to the new singles, which are both fantastic. That is No Music on a Dead Planet, and also Love is Love, with videos, which is very good. Anyway, a massive thank you. That was Ross Sinclair, and also before that, Sushil, who I was talking to at the beginning and during the interview. This has been the C86 Show, David Eastaugh. If you want to contact me, you can on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just do C86 Show. All these interviews have been archived. Aren't you lucky? Yeah, you can find those on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. True. Anyway, have a great week. Stay safe.